Welcome to the 2019 NCAA Baseball Rules and Officiating video. My name is George Druchis, NCAA National Coordinator of Umpires. It is my humble privilege to be of service to the great game of college baseball and work with the coaching and umpiring communities. During this 2019 NCAA Rules and Instructional video, the NCAA Baseball Umpire Program will be reviewing approved rule changes effective for the 2019 season and their impact on how the game is to be officiated. We will be reviewing plays in response to the NCAA Baseball Rules Committee's continual effort to write rules that are enforceable for umpires. Please note that the NCAA Baseball Umpire Program is responsible for this script and that no attempt was made by the Baseball Umpire Program to embarrass any institution, coach, student athlete, or umpire. All clips herein are used for instruction and making officiating better. The goal of this video is to develop a national style of officiating that will result in a consistent enforcement of the rules during non-conference, conference, and championship play. Stakeholders desire to have plays officiated in the same manner no matter the conference, division, or geographic region that the game is played in this great country. Throughout the 2019 baseball season, we will continue this effort with periodic video bulletins posted on the NCAA baseball website on arbitersports.com. It is my sincere hope that all coaches, administrators, and umpires will make it a habit to view these bulletins regularly. As we begin this video, it is very important for the NCAA Baseball Umpire Program to acknowledge and congratulate the coaches, coordinators, and umpires on a truly exceptional 2018 season. Thank you for your efforts to improve the game we all love.
Hello, I'm Randy Bruns, the NCAA Baseball Secretary Rules Editor. 2018 was an outstanding year for college baseball at all levels. The 2019 season is the first year of our next two-year rules cycle, and the Rules Committee felt that there were several significant rule changes that were needed to keep our game competitive and up to date while focusing on player safety and pace of play. The purpose of this video will be to review those rules and points of emphasis that the committee feels are the most important. I also encourage you to review all the rule changes and major editorial changes listed in the front of the rule book as you prepare for your role as a player, coach, or umpire during the coming season. Before we discuss the new rule changes for the 2019 season, a reminder that two new regulations about bats take effect with the 2020 season. Beginning in 2020, the barrel of any bat used in competition must be predominantly a color that contrasts with the color of the ball. Also, starting in the 2020 season for Division I and in the 2021 season for Divisions II and III, bat barrel compression testing becomes mandatory prior to each regular season series or single date of competition. In past years, it was recommended that bat or ball persons wear a protective helmet for their safety. The rules now require that any non-roster designated bat or ball person wear a double ear flap protective helmet while performing those duties. Non-roster is defined for the purpose of this rule as any team personnel other than a coach or player. Rule 1, 16B, clarifies that if a stadium is designed with a separate dead ball area for ball persons on the home plate side of the dugout, that area cannot be occupied by any uniformed players, coaches, or other team personnel. The boundary lines for the dead ball area should be clearly marked in case a ball rolls into that area. With the alteration of the definition in Rule 2-7, the defensive team's head coach is now allowed to signal the home plate umpire and intentionally walk the batter without throwing 4 pitches. This is one of the pace of play rules that is also used at other levels of baseball. Note that this addition to Rule 515A deals with an intentional, unsportsmanlike act used to disrupt the pitcher's motion and either causing a balk or altering his motion enough to alter the accuracy of the pitch. Good game management needs to be used to handle any situation that unintentionally alters the play, in fairness to both the pitcher and the batter. Only the obvious and deliberate actions should be penalized by ejecting the offender. The language of the previous rule about backswing interference included the words, "as the pitch is caught." Those words created some confusion in the situation where the catcher was hit by the backswing when he was no longer in the act of trying to catch the pitch. Those words have now been eliminated to make this situation enforced more consistently.
In these clips, backswing interference by rule would now be enforced. Remember, if the batter swings and misses a pitch and the backswing unintentionally hits the catcher or the ball, the pitch shall be called a strike, the ball is dead, and no runners advance on the play. The exception in this rule remains. If the catcher is in the act of throwing when the contact occurs, time is called and runners return unless the catcher's initial throw retires the runner.
One of the major changes for this year deals with the handling of charged conferences for both the defense and the offense. The major purpose of these changes is to allow a number of opportunities to discuss strategy without too many delays that can slow down the pace of the game. Let's examine how these changes are handled for both teams.
In general, a charged conference occurs when a coach or player leaves their position to communicate with a teammate. The defense is now allowed a total of 6 charged conferences without a pitching change during a regulation game, plus 1 additional charged conference in any extra inning game. A coach can be involved in no more than 3 of those, similar to the existing rule. Note that a pitching change is required when a coach is involved with a defensive conference in the following situations: a second trip to the same pitcher in the same inning, another trip after a coach has been involved with 3 charged conferences, and a trip after a team has used all of their allotted conferences. If a player attempts a conference after the team's limit has been reached, the request will be refused. Brief incidental communications during play that don't delay the game are not considered charged conferences. The offense is still allowed 3 charged conferences plus 1 additional in extra innings, the same as the previous rule. However, the offense no longer gets a free conference when the defense calls for a charged conference when there is no pitching change. In this situation, if the batter or any base runners leave their positions to confer with coaches or other players, they must use one of their charged conferences. If the defensive team makes a pitching change, this is not a charged defensive conference, and the offense may meet but must be back to their positions prior to the last warm-up pitch so the game can be started promptly. This offensive conference is not allowed unless the offense wants to use one of its offensive conferences.
The hit-by-pitch rule was changed in recent seasons to reduce the number of times that batters were intentionally trying to get hit by a pitch. A couple of changes were made for this season that will allow a batter to be awarded first base when hit by a pitch that hit him within the batter's box, but also awards a strike as an additional penalty for moving to intentionally get hit by the pitch. Let's review the changes and look at some examples.
The judgment of a hit-by-pitch situation is now considered the same type of decision as a ball, strike, or checked swing and cannot be argued. By rule, a coach would be ejected in this situation if he leaves his position to argue a hit-by-pitch decision. No warning is warranted. However, if video review is being utilized, a head coach could use one of his two challenges to have this hit-by-pitch situation reviewed. Remember, the goal of this rule is to discourage the practice of intentionally moving to get hit by a pitch or allowing a pitch that is not within the batter's box to hit the batter. The rule remains that if the batter had no opportunity to avoid being hit, he should be awarded first base. This batter will be awarded first base. He did not try to intentionally get hit by the pitch. This batter would be awarded first base unless the home plate umpire deems the batter tried to intentionally get hit by this pitch. Strike 3. This batter is out. This batter did not intentionally try to get hit by this pitch.
The wording of the rules that deal with obstruction and collisions are not being changed, but the interpretation of when a fielder is in the act of fielding is being changed to further restrict the fielder at any base from blocking the base without possession of the ball. Fielders will need to be more aware of their position prior to actually catching the ball, making sure that the runner has a clear path to the base. Let's look at some examples.
Whether it's a pickoff attempt, a scoring play at the plate, a cutoff and subsequent throw to retire an advancing runner, or a straight steal. In all these plays, the defensive player must clearly have possession of the throw before blocking the base with any part of the defensive player's body. Under the new interpretation of active fielding, the fielder would have to be within a step and reach in a direct attempt to catch a throw that is on line and on time to put out the runner. Contact with a fielder who is blocking the runner's pathway to the base without possession of the ball would be obstruction. The goals of this rule change are clear. Number 1, reduce the amount of contact during plays at any base. And number 2, simplify umpire judgment, especially during scoring plays at home plate.
The position of the feet prior to starting a windup or a set is a key component of a legal pitching position. This year's rule changes are more specific about the location of the feet prior to the delivery of a pitch and should make it easier for the batter and any runners to determine which of the two positions the pitcher is using.
The only change for this season relating to the windup refers to the position of the free or non-pivot foot. It must now be placed behind or breaking the plane of the front edge of the pitcher's plate. Other requirements remain the same as in the past. As a reminder, only one forward step can be taken during the actual delivery of the pitch. An initial sideward or backward step can be taken to start the delivery, but the pitcher cannot step forward to start the motion, then lean back and take another step forward in the delivery of the pitch. Also, a pitcher can pause briefly during a windup, but cannot do so when using the set position. The initial position when using the set position must now be established with the pivot foot in contact with and parallel to the pitcher's plate, and the free foot clearly in front of the rubber. The shoulders should be facing the respective foul line when the pitcher brings his hands together when coming set before the delivery of the pitch. The penalty for using an illegal position is an illegal pitch with no runners on base and a balk when runners are on base. The previous warning for a first offense has been deleted.
It has always been difficult to judge whether a right-handed pitcher actually gained ground when stepping to third to feint a throw there before turning and throwing to first. This rule change of Rule 9.3a removes that difficulty by not allowing any feints to third base from a pitching position, treating third base exactly the same as first base.
From a pitching position, the only base a pitcher can step toward and feint a throw is second base. He could, however, step off and feint toward any base.
During the 2018 season, several conferences used an expanded number of plays that could be reviewed using video review as an experimental rule. This expanded list has now been made available for use at any level of NCAA play. Umpires and coaches are reminded that there are also additional situations that can be reviewed by the umpire crew without the use of video review. Take the time to review both sections of Appendix E in the back of the rulebook for further information. Here's how the updated rule affects the use of video review.
The 6 types of plays that have been included in video review prior to this season are labeled as A through F and can be reviewed at the discretion of the umpire crew chief at any time during the game. The umpire crew can also decide to review any of the newly expanded list of plays, labeled G through L, during the last 2 innings of regulation or during any extra innings. Each head coach is allowed a maximum of 2 opportunities to request that the results of a play be reviewed. These 2 challenges can be used on any of the 12 types of reviewable plays and at any time during the game. If a trained replay official is being used, located either at the site of the game or at a centralized site, they are considered an extension of the umpiring crew and can request a video review using these same guidelines. It is recommended that a printed list of these reviewable plays be posted in each dugout whenever video review is being utilized. Let's take a look at a few clips which could be reviewed in 2019.
With pace of play being a continuing concern and point of emphasis, it's critical that the timing of intervals between pitches when there are no runners and between innings be measured and enforced consistently. Too often, these rules have been ignored or used as loosely monitored guidelines. The Rules Committee highly recommends the use of a visible clock so that these time frames are obvious to all the participants and any penalties can be more consistently be enforced. Even if a visible clock is not available, the expectation is that the timing rules be enforced throughout every game. The wording of how to time the interval between innings has been rewritten for more consistency.
The 120-second time limit between innings begins when the defensive players start to leave their positions following the last out of the inning and stops when the plate umpire puts the ball in play for the first pitch of the next half inning. The pitcher must be ready to pitch, holding the ball and touching the pitcher's rubber, and the batter must be in the batter's box and ready to hit within the 120-second time limit. If the offensive team is not ready, a strike is called on the first batter. If the defense is not ready, a ball is awarded to the first batter. The 20-second pitch time limit begins for the first pitch of each half inning when the umpire puts the ball in play and ends when the pitcher begins the motion associated with the start of the pitch. For each subsequent pitch, when there are no runners, the interval begins when the pitcher receives the ball on the mound. If the pitcher violates the time limit, he shall be warned by the umpire. For any additional violations by that pitcher, a ball is awarded to the batter. Review Appendix F for the exceptions and guidelines for administering this updated rule.
The enforcement of running lane interference is also one of the points of emphasis for the coming season. Several complaints were received throughout last season that runners were not running within the running lane during the last half of the distance to first base, interfering with the completion of any play at first base, but nothing was called. Special attention needs to be placed on this rule in fairness to the defense.
Review the provisions of Rule 7-11-P. The batter-runner is running outside the 3-foot running lane if either foot is outside either line. The batter-runner may exit the running lane on his last stride or step to reach first base if he has been running legally within the running lane up to that point. If he is running illegally to first base and his being outside the lane alters the throw of a fielder, hinders or alters a fielder's opportunity to field the throw, or if the batter-runner is hit by the throw, it is interference and the batter-runner is out. Note that being hit by the throw is not required for interference to occur. Umpires must be aware if the batter-runner has been running legally within the lane during the last half of the distance from home plate to first base.
The final point of emphasis remains coach, player, and umpire interactions. The responsibility to continue to improve the professionalism of any discussions is shared by all of the game's participants. Thank you to all that you do for the game of college baseball, and best wishes for a great season in 2019.
In 2018, there were more than 39,000 games played in college baseball. The National Coordinator of Umpires received 859 NCAA ejection reports. These included 337 Division I reports. Of this list, 150 were head coaches, 50 were assistant coaches, and 137 were student athletes. In Division I alone, the total number of suspended games in 2018 was a record 368 games, up from 287 in 2017.
Within the 2019 CCA Baseball Umpires Manual and the 2019 and 2020 NCAA Rules Book, there are Coaches' Code of Conduct and Umpire Conduct and Ethics sections which specifically state that coaches must confine their discussion with game officials to the interpretation of the rules and not challenge the umpire's decisions involving judgment, and that umpires shall uphold the honor of the profession in all interactions with student-athletes, coaches, administrators, colleagues, and the public. In the hope to improve communication between umpires and coaches and decrease ejections, we added an official warning in 2018. An official warning is a warning from an umpire that carries the words, "This is your official warning. If you continue, you will leave me no option but to eject you." Saying "knock it off, that's enough, don't say anything else," or "I've heard enough," doesn't constitute an official warning. I do want to reiterate here that there were many situations in 2018 which led directly to an ejection even before an official warning could be offered. The main culprit, direct profanity. In addition, and in the hope to decrease ejections, we are teaching, directing the umpires to be credible, concise in their communication regarding the interpretation of a rule by stating in my judgment then the most concise statement that supports the official's judgment. Umpires, you are accountable as well. When you lose your composure, don't follow mandated NCAA protocol, decide to go after a coach, stand him up, be profane, you've forgotten your true role of managing the game and the situations that arise. This rogue behavior is not defendable. Finally, in response to the Baseball Rules Committee's concerned stance on unsportsmanlike behavior, coaches, calibrate your emotions. Umpires, adhere to NCAA protocol, no exceptions. And student-athletes, eliminate profanity as retort. Thank you. Conferences are required to have their umpire coordinator directly assign and/or approve the assignments of all umpires for all conference and non-conference games. An individual umpire may work no more than 50% of one institution's home non-conference game schedule. Please note, active umpires assigning umpires to non-conference games do not have the authority to approve the umpires or any other assigning entity, only the respective conference umpire coordinator. It is required that all neutral site games involving Division I opponents have conference coordinator approved umpires. Many such events occur early in the season at neutral sites. However, use of conference coordinators to approve officials will help ensure quality umpiring at such events, inasmuch as these games may be factors in the evaluation and selection of teams for the championship. Finally, the Collegiate Commissioners Association passed 2 updates to policy related to NCAA Division I baseball umpiring at its annual spring meeting this June. The CCA administers officiating policy for regular season competition. Both changes bring umpire requirements for regular season Division I competition in line with the standard requirements for being eligible to umpire in NCAA Division I postseason play. The changes bring established best practices into formal policy. To be eligible for NCAA Division I regular season baseball umpiring assignments, an umpire must be registered with Arbiter Sports. To be eligible for NCAA Division I regular season baseball umpiring assignments, an umpire must complete the annual NCAA umpiring examination. Do not let the integrity of our great game be compromised. NCAA college baseball is in a very good place. Much gratitude and appreciation as well to all the stakeholders for their dedication with collaborative efforts, including, but not limited to, branding and marketing of officiating, clinics and educational efforts, evaluation processes, assignment recommendations for NCAA championships, communication with committees, coaches, dealing with situations during the regular season and NCAA championships, and recruiting of new officials, all of which will assuredly keep NCAA college baseball in a good place for years to come. In closing, in order to be considered for selection to officiate in the NCAA championship, officials will be expected to consistently enforce the rules as written during the regular season. Marked improvements and greater traction were made in aligning conference coordinators to the national program these past few years. We will continue to teach proper handling, proper language, and minimizing of the confrontational situations between coaches and officials and hold all accountable to task. Finally, consistency of mechanics, increased teamwork, consistency of rule interpretations, and situation management will continue to be important goals. Coaches, players, officials, remember who you are, who you represent, why we do what we do. Wishing all the stakeholders of our great game of NCAA college baseball the very best in 2019. Thank you.